If you're looking for just the Masterworking material and nothing else, skipping the Greater Affix equipment chest and going straight for the materials chest in the Infernal Horde is the way to go. But you're sacrificing a lot of other things by doing that. I've collected the data from running a bunch of Infernal Hordes and Nightmare Dungeons on Torment 4 for science. Here are the stats. For the Infernal Horde runs, keep in mind that I spent the Aether on the equipment chest first and then the materials chest. Even with that, the Infernal Hordes yields a higher amount of Obducites per hour but have longer average run times. However, not all Infernal Hordes are made the same. You have a choice to do Infernal Hordes with 6, 8, or 10 waves. Should I focus on Infernal Hordes with 6 waves? No. Not if you want to focus on Masterworking. If you look at the differences between Infernal Hordes with 6 waves versus Infernal Hordes with 8 or 10 waves, Wave 6 Infernal Hordes have lower Obducites per hour than Nightmare Dungeons. The flat 200 Aether cost for the equipment chest really digs into the Aether gathered from a shorter run. Does this data apply on lower difficulties? No. The chest drops a different amount of Obducite on lower difficulties. The chest in Torment 3 drops Obducite in stacks of 160 versus stacks of 320 for Torment 4. Should I ignore Nightmare Dungeons since the data shows Infernal Hordes are better? No. Unfortunately, this is not a complete scientific study of Obducite drops. I did these runs without the Seething Opal's buff for materials. The Infernal Hordes doesn't utilize the Seething Opal buff that well since you get all the drops at the end. It is possible that you get more Obducite per hour in Nightmare Dungeons with a constant Seething Opal buff for materials. And even if it didn't yield higher amounts of Obducite, you'll miss out on these other benefits from Nightmare Dungeons. Distilled Fears from completing the dungeon, loot from Goblin drops, loot from Butcher drops, maximizing the benefit of the Seething Opal buff. The Obducites per hour is not that much lower in Nightmare Dungeons, and it may be worth the trade-off, especially if you're looking for mythic gear. Infernal Hordes don't get you any boss materials, while Nightmare Dungeons do. So if you're going to do some Nightmare Dungeons, here's some things to know. Should I skip the events? No. They're a good source of Obducite. Completing the event will give you around 2 to 300. You can lose up to 1/3 of the Obducite that the dungeon offers by skipping an event. Should I ignore the treasure room? No. They're a good source of Masterworking materials. Doing the optional objectives in the new Vessel of Hatred dungeons and opening the treasure room will give around 2 to 300 Obducite. Should I ignore the chests? No. They drop Obducite. You shouldn't go out of your way for these chests. You should open them when they're convenient. Are the Vessel of Hatred dungeons better than the D4 Classic dungeons? No. There's only a small difference between them when you compare the stats. And these stats are probably within margin of error. I haven't done any additional work to verify this further. In the end, Nightmare Dungeons are relatively competitive to Infernal Hordes when it comes to Masterworking materials. Unless I need a specific unique that comes from Infernal Hordes, I would prioritize Nightmare Dungeons because of the side benefit of gathering boss materials. I need the mythics, baby!